Hello then, sorry about that. Steffi has just confirmed that we are live because we can't have the Facebook window open or we get all sorts of interference. So hello and welcome to part 2 of our leyline chat discussion. And I'm just going to ask each member quickly to introduce themselves, about just a sentence each, if you can stick to that. And then I'll get straight into what ley lines are, a quick resume from last time. So Diane, you're on the top left there. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, my name's Diane Dowell, and I'm a very curious individual and follow a very organic process, and I've got a very powerful son inside me, so that's me.
Oh, I was thinking you were pregnant for a minute there.
No.
And of course, I just realised, Diane, that you were at my house on the 777. Yes. And we did actually put some, we put some of our violet flame symbols into the ley line. So you'll be able to talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. If you're okay with that. Okay, fantastic. Yes. Right. So Sandy, welcome from Australia, even though it looks like you're by Big Ben.
I am. I was born in London. So this is one of my pictures that I have, apart from being on the ley line track, I could say. But yes, hence why I'm dressed like this, because it's freezing, it's winter. So yes, I've been a practitioner for over 30 years, natural practitioner, naturopathy, etc. But I've always had an interest in esoterics, ley lines, gates, all sorts of things. And so love the ley lines, love using my rods, and I don't always need to. Sometimes it's just comes through the tingles. So yeah, so that's me.
Well, Sandy and Katie and I were on the first version, or the first episode, if you like, of our series. And actually, we had a different Diane last time, Diane Cutts, who can't make Thursdays. And this Diane, who was always invited anyway, couldn't make last month's date. So so we've got a different Diane making up the team there. But you didn't have your rods last time, Sandy, did you? You said they were in England. Have you had to buy some more, or were they spare in the cupboard?
No, I found them.
Well done.
I went hunting under the house in my stuff.
Well done. Brilliant. Okay. And Katie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I've sort of been into all things sort of natural health and healing for about 30 years, I suppose, nutrition, Reiki, just exploring really. And I feel sort of up for things, whatever they are. I've always found the idea of ley lines intriguing, and energy centres like the obvious ones in England, like Stonehenge, Glastonbury. And recently, teaming up with Joanna, I suppose it was more beginning of last year, wasn't it? Probably we started doing these forays out on auspicious dates, perhaps Celtic things like Imbolc or Lammas, and just choosing those days plus multiple numbers like 7/7 in a 7 year that we did this year. So yeah, I just find the whole idea really intriguing. And I realized that years and years ago, before I discovered forest bathing, when I used to go out and walk by myself in the woods, I used to imagine sending energy down into a sort of web of things, imagining the roots. And this is before I knew anything about the Wood Wide Web. I just sending, asking to channel energy, healing into the earth. So I find that all wonderfully exciting and look forward to our outings. So yes, been to quite a few with Joanna.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, so Katie and I run Harmony in Nature, which is a forest bathing operation, I suppose you could call it, forest bathing business. And I also run Harmony Healing, and through that I specialise in Egyptian alchemy. So we work a lot with violet flame of Amenti, a particular version of the violet flame which came through to me, if you like. And of course, Amenti has an Egyptian connection. Egypt wasn't called Egypt before Alexander the Great invaded. It was known as Kem, or Kempt, it's pronounced. And so I have a particular interest in that. And in fact, I got interested in ley lines as a child. I travelled to lots and lots of countries. My father was a travel agent and pilot, so we travelled a lot. But I didn't really know that they were sacred sites as such. I was just going to them as tourist attractions. And it was only really when I met Chris Street, probably in about 1998 or 9 or the early 2000s. And Chris is a chap, Christopher Street. He wrote this book, Oh, it's not going to show, of course, because my background. Or I can just get it to show if I put it in my own energy. Look, London's Ley Lines, Pathways of Enlightenment. And you can't see it if I hold it up, but it's by Christopher Street. It's available from lulu.com, printed on demand. And when I met him, he got me really interested in actually working with the ley lines, not just going to them. And he was particularly keen to tell us about the coronation line, which is what we're focusing on today. So just in case you didn't see episode 1, I don't know if you guys just want to mute while you're not talking, just in case there's any other background noise coming through, but make sure you're ready to jump in again when you've got something to say. And I know you all will have, because you're a very knowledgeable bunch, let's say. So I'll just quickly review. I think this is similar intro to last time, but just for anyone who didn't make our episode 1. So I also have a company called Harmony Journeys, and through that I used to take groups to Egypt, and I've hired Stonehenge many times, as well as the Great Pyramid and various other places. And through that, we became very interested in sacred site pilgrimages, and they have a very long and established history, such as the Hajj to Mecca, the Crusades, obviously, Aboriginal walkabouts, the Sacred Camino to Santiago de Compostela. All of those are really good examples of crusades or pilgrimages. And because I have in the past taken personally escorted sacred site tours, I'm often asked why people are attracted to sacred sites and what's the benefit of visiting them. So in the 1920s, a British archaeologist named Alfred Watkins, you may have noticed my name is Bristow Watkins, but I don't think I'm related to him, but he hypothesized the existence of and mapped a few of something that he called ley lines, and he defined them as an energy alignment connecting a number of sites, each with historical interests such as ancient monuments or megaliths, or they might be geographical features such as natural ridgetops, hills and waterways. And mystics believe that visiting these ley lines provide an enhanced opportunity for connecting to the land as our ancestors did, enabling us to somehow tap into a higher consciousness and thereby expand our spiritual awareness. So it's the chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Were sacred sites built on land that was already powerful? So did these ley lines that crisscross the land, in a way, I like to think of them as like the land's meridians, and the sacred sites are often like the chakra points or the vortices where a lot of these lines cross. So did our ancient ancestors build those sacred sites on those spots because they could feel that energy vortex, or did that sacred site that they built create the vortex? And I think it could be a bit of both, to be honest, but we certainly can feel, if you're sensitive to it, an electromagnetic force field. And you know, obviously Sandy, when she held up those 2 copper rods, she's indicating that she's able to douse for them with the copper rods. Other people might douse for them with literally a pendulum like this one here. This is one of my ones. I don't know if you can see it because I'm actually looking at a different screen at the moment. That's a lapis lazuli one. Or you can just feel it in yourself, maybe some tingling, maybe you feel empowered, maybe you feel a lot more awake than you did before you were on that spot. Lots of various reasons why you might feel things. And through many millennia, Neolithic monuments even have served as initiatory and ceremonial centres for religious scholars such as the Druids, who were an ancient Celtic order of priests, teachers, diviners and magicians, and they gleaned knowledge and enlightenment from sacred landscapes and ancient trees as well. Especially tutorial oaks. So in Chris's book, London's Ley Lines, he talks about I think it's a 30-pointed star that he mapped out around the London area. And that's obviously comprised of lots of different lines. And some of them come out quite close to us. We've got one of the vortices is actually at Wimbledon Common, which isn't that far from here. But more excitingly, we have what he calls the most important ley line, is the Coronation line that we're talking about today. And that comes right into the town that I'm in. It comes through Kinkstone, where there is the King Stone, an ancient stone where 7 Saxon kings were crowned, and that's really important. So I'll be coming back to that in a moment. The grounds of Hampton Court. And I also live close to Oatlands Palace, one of Henry VIII's palaces. So I knew I lived in a really, really powerful place. But when Chris came and visited me once to go to some of the sites that he'd already identified as being on the Coronation line, he rather surprisingly announced that he was fairly sure that my house was on the Coronation line. And furthermore, we discovered a couple of other interesting things. One was that he had identified a little pond, which was he felt was on the line, and we went and found it, and it was right outside my niece's house at the time. She's since moved, but it proved as a very useful landmark for us to remember how to find it. But the other interesting thing was we were driving along a road to go to Esher called Lammas Lane, Lammas, and some of you may know that that is another name for Lunasa, the festival of the 1st of August, the Celtic festival. It has both of those names. And he said, I bet you this road is aligned to the sunrise of the solstice, or the sunrise, perhaps more importantly, of the 1st of August, because it's Lunasa, you know, it's Lammas. So being Lammas Lane, it's probably going to be aligned to the sunrise of the 1st of August. So how about that? It's just up the road. And the weirdest thing is that a few years ago, many of you will remember, we had the Olympics here in 2012 in England, in London. And it was also the Queen's Silver Jubilee. No, not silver, Golden Jubilee, probably. It was a big jubilee of hers. It might even have been a diamond one, but it wasn't her final one, the platinum one. And he had said, Chris had said, that there would be a lot of activities would have been aligned specially for the royal family to tap into the energy of that whole year, because 2012 was supposed to be the year that we all ascended. If any of you are from the spiritual community, you might have heard that. I think the 21st of December 2012 was supposed to be when we might all disappear from this dimension. So he felt that the fact that the coronation line was going to be empowered by the Olympics was really important. And you know what was really bizarre? That on the 1st of August, they held the cycle races along Lammas Lane. So the trials, which we did very well in, I think Bradley Wiggins, or whoever was our team leader, did really well. And that was all happening along Lammas Lane on the 1st of August. You couldn't make it up, could you? Anyway, enough of that. So as you can tell from that, I feel a strong connection with the coronation line. And furthermore, because I live on it, and because we've had some really dramatic changes to our monarchy in the last year, it's become especially important to work on this line. Having met Chris back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, he introduced me to visiting the ley lines, and particularly lots of the sites on the coronation line as a group, to have a spiritual intention, if you like, to make a difference to the world through putting positivity, love and light, whatever you want to call it, into those lines. Not just the coronation line, but that being one that's very unique to our country. We are a very monarchy-led island, if you like, that it was one that held us together. And he even explained why it's called the coronation, because perhaps you've never thought of it, but why do kings wear crowns, kings and queens? Apparently, it's to represent the rays of the sun. And so it literally is making it look as if they have a corona around their head, like they're shining like the sun. And of course, that goes right back to the teachings I work with of Ra, Ra being the sun god. And Ra was the god in ancient Egypt, or Kem as it was called then, who ratified the choice of Pharaoh. And in fact, Chris was also a tutor druid for many years. And part of what he said to me about that was that there's a lot of ancient Egyptian folklore, if you like, in druid lore. So here we are doing a full circle. Some of you may remember, was it Louis XIV or Louis XVI who called himself the Sun King? And so we have a long tradition in many different countries and civilizations of a connection between royalty and the sun. And so this coronation line in London goes through lots of sites with connection to royalty, but more importantly, it is a summer solstice sunrise alignment that Chris has mapped out. And it probably doesn't go along Lammas Lane, because that's a week or two late, well, a month or two later, 6 weeks later than the summer solstice, but it does go very close, and hence right past my house potentially, if Chris is right. So it was rather a long intro there to what the coronation line is about, but I'm sure whatever country you're watching from, you will know perfectly well that September the 8th last year, we lost our Queen Elizabeth, who'd reigned for over 70 years. And in fact, one of the things that our task force of leyline workers did, a couple of us, there's only 2 available, went up to London the next day on the 9th of September, which numerologically is interestingly a 9-9, because the 9th of the 9th month, but the year wasn't a 9. But we couldn't get very close to Buckingham Palace, but we went and did some work at Green Park, which is on a different line. But we were homing it in, if you like. We were trying to send it through to Buckingham Palace from there. And we did actually go and stand outside Buckingham Palace for a while and try and beam some positive energy towards the palace. And the thinking here is that the king has to be ratified, as in the old days, by the land. Is he the rightful monarch? As you know, obviously she died, he was kind of named immediately, but he wasn't really crowned as such until this year. We'll come back to that. But even on that date, the 9th of September, he was already the new monarch. And I don't profess to know whether he's a good choice for the country or not. He's certainly outspoken really about eco issues for a very long time, over 50 years. And in that respect, I feel very strongly about him, that he's trying to do something for the planet. But I wouldn't profess to know whether he's the right choice for us or not. And the thinking is that it's about whether the land thinks he's the right choice or not. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys. I hope I can make the share screen work this time. I want to show you a picture. I just want to share the screen. Why is it making me do this? Right, okay, so let's just go into here. Are you seeing the shared screen on Facebook? I mean, obviously we're not. Let's just go into this one picture then. This is what I want to share. This is a picture of the stone of Scone, as it's pronounced, from Scotland, and it's underneath St Edward's chair. This is the chair that Charles III was crowned on. This is the coronation chair. It dates back to about 1329. I should have remembered the date.
Joanna, it's showing lots of different photos.
It's not actually going onto the right screen. Okay, so this is the one, but it's not actually letting me home in on it. Then I did click on it and it looked as if it was sharing it, but it isn't. No. Okay, that's a shame. Right, well, I can't show you then. That's a shame. So it's not sharing it now, even though it is on my screen. No. Here.
Can you double click it, Jo?
I did double click it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's on my screen very clearly. Okay, well, maybe I'll just try getting it clearly on my screen first and then sharing it. Perhaps that will work better. Hold on a minute. Okay, let's try again. Is it working this time? Yes, okay. So this is St Edward's chair, and this was the coronation chair that was used for Charles's coronation on the 6th of May this year. And it dates back, as I say, to the 1300s. One of the Edwards Longshank, I think, was the first one to use it. And underneath the chair is actually the stone of Scone, which is not necessarily talked about, although I think there were a few articles, if you happen to notice them, around the time of the coronation, but it's not something we learn about at school or anything. We probably should, but this is not by accident that this stone is here. It's because even though they aren't shouting about it, the royal family actually know that the land has to condone them as the right choice. And by having part of the land hidden, if you like, in the throne, that is all part of the process. And the stone of Scone was actually a much bigger stone originally. It came from Scotland, it came from Edinburgh, and I think part of it maybe has gone back there. I'm not sure of the exact story, but that has been under the chair of Scottish kings and queens for a very, very long time. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment now. Okay, I'd like to bring in the other guys now, because I think I spoke for a long time there. And Sandy hasn't been involved in any of our task force work, but obviously she does work with leylines generally. Let me just bring you in first quickly to ask you how you would dowse for a ley line with your rods? Would that put you on the spot as you've got your rods there? Would you be able to give us a quick demo? And then I'll invite the others to talk about some of the experiences we've had.
Okay, so I use rods, I use pendulums, and just my energy will tell me when I'm on a ley line. It just depends what's going on the day and what I get guided to use. But these are rods. I'm hoping you can see them in front of here. And they have, you can't guide them yourself. You know, you can't move them around. This is a loose, and you can make these yourself. You don't necessarily have to go and buy them, but the good copper ones are especially a little bit more sensitive, I would say. So basically, I just cross them at the end. I'm hoping you can see this, the end. And then you go to where you believe that, you know, the start of the ley line is, because obviously done some work before just to see where you are. And you will see that you just hold them and they will start doing all sorts of things. And then they settle into and guide you into like a pathway. And then you can just continue to walk the pathway and they will guide you so that you can follow the energy line or the ley line. And that's what you can do with your rods. And that's what I do. I'm here in Melbourne in Australia, and I've walked quite a few of our local ley lines here. But I'm from London. I was born in London. I didn't leave till I was 12, and I've been back a number of times. And I was always drawn to, that's why I've got Big Ben and Westminster Abbey, although that's not, can't quite see that. It's behind, isn't it, from memory? But the energy that used to surge through me was just amazing. And the thing that I really want to say is that every human being has this. It's a latent, I guess, it's just latent in all of us, and we're forgetting. We're forgetting the power that we have within. And, you know, part of, I'm sure with Joanna, our work that we do is to awaken that within everybody. So so that's a little bit about these. You can buy them online. You can make your own. You can look up YouTube, or use a pendulum as Joanna does.
Did you see the pendulum when I held it up? Because I was on a different screen. Could you see?
Saw a little bit of it. That's better.
Oh, it's going in and out, isn't it?
In front of you, if you hold it in front of you.
There we go. That's my lapis one, or one of, I've got many actually, but that's a nice hardy one that doesn't break when I carry it around.
Yeah.
Lots of the others lose that. So this is another example of one that was a lovely one. It was made of angelite. I've got to try and get it into the picture there. But can you see the tips broken off? And that's the problem, that they usually point at the bottom, but they're a bit fragile there. So you can get metal ones as well, actually, which is quite good. Okay, thank you so much for that, Sandy.
All right.
So I know that you know, we did say that today we were going to talk about some of our escapades. Katie's been on a few. So Katie, I'm going to invite you to talk about, which one would you like to talk about? Because we've got a few pictures, but I can try and get some pictures shared while you're talking. And obviously Diane was involved on the very big one this year, which was the 777 on the 7th of July, which you were at as well. But it'd be nice if Diane talks about that one. But do you fancy talking about, let me see what I've got here. Do you want to talk about when we went to the King's Stone? Because that was, oh, you're on mute, by the way. Our little event to the King's Stone, because we went to the King's Stone on the solstice this year, didn't we? On the 21st of June.
Yes.
And I mean, I just want to say here, if anybody's listening and thinking, well, you know, who do they think they are going and putting power into these lines? How it sounds like we might be a bit deluded with grandeur, maybe. But the point is, we don't think it takes anything special to do it. It's just the intention of wanting to really put positivity and light and love into these formations. So that particular roll of 4 of us, weren't there, on that day? We met at Kingston. But anyway, I'll hand over to you, and I'll when you're talking about the different bits, if you want to mention the pub or the name of the pub, I'll show a quick picture of that. And then we'll start with the stone and then what happened when we went to the church. Yeah. And what our intention was, even though it might not have happened yet. Okay, right. I'm looking at the pictures. Over to you.
Okay. Well, we started off, the intention was to go to the King's Stone, and it's a seven-sided, stone based on a seven-sided with a seven-sided base, and it's a representation of the 7 Saxon kings who were crowned at Kingston. So it was very interesting. The wording was a little hard to see, wasn't it, Joe? But it was very interesting going round and seeing who they were, working out the dates, because it was all Roman numerals, but eventually managed to sort of work it out. So it went back a very long time. And there were things like Ethelred was one of them, wasn't he? And we went to the church nearby where, I mean, this actual position where it is now was not its original position. These are outside the courts, I think. Originally, it was in a little church a short distance away. And very interestingly, Joe, do you remember when we talked to the guy, one of the guardians there, who was just very informative? He said, oh, well, Ethelred, oh no, it wasn't. It was something different, wasn't it? Ethelred the Unready. Shall I go with that one?
He was one of them, and it was just really, really typical synchronicity that a few weeks later we were doing the Buckingham Palace line and we found ourselves at the church of St Ethelred, didn't we?
Or yes, or St Edward's, wasn't it?
It was St Edward, that's right. Yes,
in Brookwood, which is in the cemetery, in the main cemetery.
Yes,
it's an Orthodox church, and as we arrived, somewhat later than we planned, but there was a service which wasn't listed, and it was just finishing. So we went inside, and the priest was really welcoming and said, "No, come in, I'll show you around before we lock up." And he mentioned Ethelred the Unready, and he said the reason he was called the Unready was because he, firstly, there was he didn't learn to read. I think that was it. That was the original thing. Was he had apparently when his stepbrother was killed, because the stepmother wanted her son to be in line to the throne, not the stepson. And it ended up that he was so traumatized by this, we presume he is slightly younger, he was so traumatized by this that and so distressed, and the mother actually hit him, apparently with a bunch of candlesticks, and it changed something in his brain. So he never learned to read. So that was somewhat interesting.
well, it was yes,
Joe,
because this is, I'm just showing the stone now,
yeah.
where it actually says Ethelred. And interestingly, do you remember that? Can you just see that there was this coin stuck under the D?
Yes.
We couldn't imagine how it had got there. We didn't put it there. We were all, people had thrown money into it, hadn't they? But this one had obviously been thrown in by somebody where she got stuck. But the weirdest thing is that obviously, because this poor Ethelred the Unready had become king through the murder of his brother, effectively, that had really traumatized him, there was a lot of sadness that needed clearing from that church. But that actually didn't happen on that day. That was a subsequent one, but a good example of the strange things that happened for us. So here's what we noticed as we were walking to the church from the stone. Yeah, well, you'll see it in a second. So what do we notice about the pub, Katie?
What's it called? The Druid's Head.
Yes. So that was a little
we
clue
like
to
that.
us.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a
little clue. Maybe we were on the right path.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to share a different picture of the church itself. Oh, I was hoping to share it. Sorry, it's not so easy to share the pictures. I should have put them on I'll have to remember for next time that you need to have them on it's not letting me share it. I already shared it too early.
Never mind.
Oh, there we go. It's doing it now. So yeah, this was a little piece inside the door of the church, wasn't it, about the 7 Saxon kings?
Yes, so it was very informative, and actually the stone was originally there, not in that church, which was slightly later built, but there in the grounds of this church, you can see the remains of the original walls. So it's reasonably well marked for you to find the orientation of it and where they were. And so, in fact, the guide in the church had said they were trying to get the stone, the king's stone, put back into the grounds of the church because they felt it wasn't quite right where it was. And I had also noticed that it literally has a river flowing underneath it, which I know is considered not good feng shui. So we sort of had a feeling that it would rather be back in the church, actually. So we set an intention that etherically it would be there, even if it wasn't physically there. So these things, they just crop up as we go along, really, don't they? And so it's just about one person may feel something, another not. But we sort of go with what we feel, always with a loving intention. And yes, it was trying to heal anything, discovering that sadness later about Ethelred. And we don't know what all of those stories were for all of those kings and how they came to be there, potentially from the murder of somebody else. So that's one good reason to do this work. And we afterwards, I'm just thinking.
We were going to go to St Anne's Hill, but we didn't make it, did we? That's another good example.
We did make it to Oatlands Palace. Was that the one? Did we get to
I think that was a different day.
Was it? I'm so confused. We've been to a lot actually, but it did end up. We always had planned to maybe do 2 or 3 places, and usually end up with 1, maximum 2, because there's all sorts of things that crop up when we're there. So the church coffee shop was very nice. So we sat by where we thought the stone would have been, had a sense of it, and toasted it with a nice coffee and snack. So it did feel quite important, really, because of what was going on. And we don't actually know all of the stuff there. And I think that to some extent it's just being humble about it. So we often get out our, yes, you can see an example there, we get out our rugs and maybe put out, what people have felt, that they want to bring. So it might be, Jo often has her harmonizer with her, which is really lovely. In the picture, you can see things like potentially angelic angel cards, bringing in healing energy. We sometimes use essential oils, different crystals, perhaps some different plant essences or extracts. So yes, really, whatever comes to us, and we each just bring what we feel called to bring on the day.
This is another view of the wider group here, and behind us there, that's the pond that Chris decided was the one that was on his map on the Coronation line. This is a different day, because as Katie said, we had intended to go to 2 or 3 places on that day that we went to Kingston, but we ended up spending a fortune on the blinking car park in Kingston because we didn't
yes, I'm never going back.
Yes, got stuck in the one-way system and stuck in a bus lane. It was awful. Anyway, I guess it was meant to be, maybe we were meant to be sending some healing to the bus lane, I don't know, but it was it didn't go to plan. But it's so funny that often our arranged time that we're going to meet just doesn't happen, and then when we actually do meet and when we actually do go there, it's the perfect time. So it's hard to explain. But yes, with regard to this one, let me just show you one other picture from that of of the little pond. If you can, I don't know if you can see it a little bit better in this picture, but this is a different day. So as you can probably gather from what Katie said, we've done so many of these lately that they are a bit jumbled up in our minds. We don't always work on the coronation line, but I was trying to pick ones for today which were. So this is the pond again. My house is on the line, as we said. So I'm going to invite Diane to talk about an event that we held here on the 7th of July this month, which was a 777 in numerology. And 7 is the number of magic and mystery, and it's also the 7th ray is violet. So we were working with the violet flame of Amenti. We were running a course with it, and so we did the attunements outside in my garden, which is on the line, of course. And so so I'm going to invite Diane to talk about that. But before I ask her, just to say that we worked in May, we worked on 3 different dates, which we took to be 555 numerology. It's a bit confusing, but if you just take the 23 of the year, not the whole year, just take the 23 part, then you have a 5 numerology. And so the 5th of May being the 5th month, the 14th of May, because of course 1 and 4 make 5, and the 23rd of May, we're all carrying some degree of 555 energy. And although that's a bit contrived because the year is actually 2023, which is a 7 year, the point is, because there are going to be a certain number of people all over the world taking it as a very important date numerologically, then there would have been other people, if you like, doing reverential things on that day, and that itself makes it powerful. So one of these, this one was the 14th of May, so that was a 555. And I think on one of the other 555s, Katie and I went to Woking Palace, and then we went to Oatlands Palace, which were on a different line, the Buckingham Palace line, which we're not talking about today specifically, but we felt that was also very relevant with all the things that happened in the coronation line. And then, of course, the dates like the Celtic festivals, the 1st of August, etc., and the equinoxes, and of course the solstice, they're always going to be powerful. So we were also working. We did that month. We did a couple of things on the 6th of June or the 24th of June. We did something else, which is also St. John's Day. It's Midsummer's Day. We always do something on that date. And then in July we had the 7th, the 16th, and the 25th. We're all 777. So we've been really doing so much in the last 2 months that they're all a bit confused in our minds. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now then, and invite Diane, if you want to. Diane, are you happy to talk about what we did in the garden and the attunement we had and what you felt, if you can remember, on that day?
Thank you. Yeah. And also I've been writing as I've been listening to you all, and saying, you know, I opened up with having a very strong son, not pregnant son, but yes, that Sandy so graciously mentioned when she spoke about how she uses the rods, but you don't need to use that. That's just a tool, and we've all got that inside us, and that is very much what I've worked with over many years, and I treat it as a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So that is, I don't have a tool. I've used tools in the past. I've had a little go with the rods. I had a little go with dowsers, but eventually it's all inside us, and you know, so that's where I come from. So that's been the muscle over the last, well, 30 years, however long, that I've developed. And going back to Joe, where you said about the 7-7, I had a draw to come to that. Again, the muscle expanded, it contracted, expanded, to come to that, not knowing it being on a coronation line. And it was interesting how that day played out. I feel as if information comes in when you're, so say you've got your own jigsaw puzzle and you get pieces of information, and that pieces of information of pieces for the jigsaw. So they were getting filled in an awful lot on that day. And also with me staying at that place down the road from Joe's house, which as we found out when you were talking in the session that it was part of the King's Manor, or Henry VIII, you said, didn't you?
Well, it's previously the pub is now called the Chaser or something, isn't it?
Yes,
But it had been called the King's Manor.
Yes.
When I was growing up, and it's probably about a quarter of a mile away from Oatlands Park Hotel, and they probably were all part of Oatlands Palace.
So you find, what I'm saying is, for me, I find I'm on these because when I'm booking somewhere or when I'm doing something, it's that inner rod, as Sandy puts it, that is expanding. You know, it feels right to go there. You have a real draw for it. And on the day, you know, even with numerology, on the day we realized we were talking about the number 5, and I'd shared with you, well, for me, mistletoe is associated with number 5. And for those that don't know, I chair the Mistletoe Association in the capital of mistletoe of the UK, and that's heavily associated with the Druids, and that just happened to become a strong point throughout my 8 years of really working with the plant. But going back to Joe's, you know, we were sat around the table while we were learning about the violet flame and being there on the day and being attuned, and we realized we were all Virgos and Libras, and we had so many synchronistic dates. The other lady who was there shared the same birthday with me, and that was the same day that Katie's mum and dad got married or something, but it's Joe's sister's birthday, and all of a sudden you've got this, here you go, here's a load of information that is going to connect you all together, that is that the flame working? Is that the strength of being on the line working? Who knows? It doesn't matter. But all these bits of information come and get expressed, and you're like, wow. And it's a deeper connection back to the muscle inside us. So again, a deeper connection. But I'm losing my train of thought because I went on to Joe. So give me a question.
Well, I was just thinking
me again.
at 11 o'clock ish, 11:11, because that's a very powerful time, which you can research online. And many years ago, even the guy who used to do the spoon bending, can't think of his name now.
Oh, Copperfield.
No, not Copperfield.
Uri
Geller talked about 11:11. You'll find work of his on there. But that's a powerful time that people see. If you keep flashing on and off, Katie, you're a flasher in the wrong way. Well, in the right way. So 11:11 is very potent time, and so we wanted to do the attunements at 11:11 in the garden, and the sun came out for us. But at that very moment, the 5th member of the team, who wasn't actually there at the time, because it was the 3 of us who are here now, plus a girl called Nikki and Agatha, 2 of my students. It was an advanced level course, so you had to have done the beginner level to be there anyway. And Agatha was actually at Leith Hill, because Leith Hill, according to another very prominent psychic who I'm friends with, and medium, Edwin Courtney, he feels that Leith Hill is where the violet flame, which is this ancient tool of alchemy that we've mentioned, is anchored within the UK. But Katie and I also work with a place called the Cosmon Sanctuary, which is just up the road from Leith Hill and is on the same ley line, and they are very aligned with angels and Melchizedek, who's another number 7 connection, another violet connection. And so she was at Leith Hill connecting us there, and we were in the garden, and then later we went to the Cosmon Sanctuary and connected in there, where they have a 7-turn labyrinth in the grounds as well. So if you want to give us any memories of either the attunement at 11:11 or going to the Cosmon later, I see we've only got 15 minutes left. I can't believe that 45 minutes has gone by. So after that, we better do a quick exercise for everybody to join in, because we like to do that. But do you have any memories you'd like to share about either the attunement or the later bit when we were at the Cosmon, Diane?
the Cosmon, it was interesting when we'd walked the labyrinth, and then we went into the wood, didn't we? And there was that beautiful tree that looked like a spider coming out of the ground. It was fantastic. But on the way back out of the wood, I'd arrived with a knee which is currently getting better, a sore knee which is currently about getting better. And as we came out of the wood, I misplaced my foot, and it kind of realigned the knee. But also another thing I also wanted to pick up, I do a lot of womb work, or started to do a lot of crystalline womb work. And one thing which has been highlighted over the last 18 months is how much grief that the women are holding, and also listening to the stories that you were telling about the kings, the 7 kings, and how the stepmom wanted the other son to have the throne, and so you know, deaths happened, and we'll get rid of this family member so that family member can come, and that takes me deeper in the sense of all this is in the land, and if that's in the land, then we're feeling that through ourselves. And how much of that, I'm not saying we get rid of our own family members, even though sometimes you think anyway, let's not go there, but but how much of that through this coronation line is actually coming up and highlighting things that we've carried through our own DNAs that could be possibly reflecting back to us at this time right now. So that was another thing that came up whilst I was listening to you that I wanted to share, which may be going off the coronation line, but I think somehow has got something to do with it, because I feel strong to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was a very powerful day, and it was actually 7 p.m. in the evening when we were at the Cosmon Sanctuary, wasn't it? And I remember now, as you were walking back, when you got your foot caught in that hole and you stumbled, and you were, oh no, a horrible end to the day. You said, actually, my knee feels better. So it was all very bizarre, and it was a very powerful and important moment for us, wasn't it? I would like to, I mean, I feel like Sandy and Katie haven't contributed much at the moment. So I'm just going to very quickly suggest that everybody who's watching, even if it's watching later, if one of the places, let me just share where the ley line goes, because I think that's, and I haven't done that yet. So this is a close-up of the line. Can everybody see it? Can you see it? So this here, St George's Hill, some of you may have heard of that Cliff Richard lived there, and John Lennon, all sorts of famous, it's very, very sort of rich person's haven, really. It's quite lovely. It's an old hill fort. And I live, that's the Wainfleet Tower. I live in more this sort of part of it. But anyway, the Wainfleet Tower, All Saints Church we've talked about. And again, you know, it was so interesting that it was 7 Saxon kings. And we were talking about the 7 of the year, the 7 numerology. And it felt quite something that we were going there to potentially set our intention to help the stone get moved to where it wanted to be. We were imagining carrying it, but obviously we were only imagining that. But, you know, we were trying to set the route for it to follow, if you like. And the work that we did there may have changed the energy that was happening in the lines on the actual first 777 on the 7th of July when we were at the Cosmon, etc. You've got the land. There are lots of other sites, actually. In fact, further above, I think, if I can, don't know if I can move the thing down. I've got it a bit high up. In fact, I've got it on a different. There we go. That's the list of everywhere on the line. So we've got St George's Hill, Weybridge, Whiteley Village, Hersham, Wainfleet Tower, Esher, All Saint Church, Kingston, Putney Heath, Park, Peace Pagoda, Battersea Park, St Stephen's Church, Rochester Row, St Matthew's Church, Great Peter Street, Westminster Abbey, St Margaret's, Westminster, Big Ben, the Clock Tower, which Sandy's got behind her there, Oxo Tower, St Andrews by the Wardrobe, don't really know much about that, the St Paul's Cathedral and the Old Pole's Stump, which is part of St Paul's Cathedral, St Vedast alias Foster, remains of the Garden of Mary Alderbury, Moorgate Station, the Chapel of Open Book in Wilson Street, Mount Arnold Circus, which is actually somewhere that a big group of us went to last year, which is now a sort of island in the middle of a load of roads, so it's a bit strange, but it's on several ley lines in London, including the Coronation line. And in fact, St Matthew's Church, Bethnal Green and Leytonstone, we went to on one of the 666s, didn't we? Or two double sixes. Katie and I think the 6th of June, we were up there for a presentation at UCL, and we went to Leytonstone afterwards. So if any of those speak to you, perhaps for some of you, you know, obviously the Oxo Tower or the Millennium Wheel, Westminster Abbey, they're going to be things that you can really easily picture. So you might want to pick one of those. But if you just pick one of these sites on the line, we'll just spend 2 or 3 minutes just sending our own energy from wherever we are in the world into that line from whatever point you choose. Okay. I'm already on the line, so it's easy for me, but but the rest of you will have to imagine. So I'm going to suggest we use the violet flame as an image, but if you've never worked with the violet flame, it's a fantastic tool of transmutation. We sometimes call it spiritual antiseptic. And in fact, I was doing a course on it this Tuesday, which was another 777. We were doing sending healing into the land again then at 7 p.m. So if you want to just visualize a flame shape and visualize it being in violet, and visualize it growing and growing to the point where you can actually be inside that flame. So imagine that you're actually inside a living consciousness of violet flame. And in this moment, if anything comes up in your mind, something that you want to transmute away in your life, some negativity that's been haunting you, just give that permission, that intention that the violet flame can help you get rid of that, to release yourself from it, to use that spiritual antiseptic to transmute the problem. And then allow yourself to, if you want to, you can drop down with the flame. Not everybody likes the idea of going down into the ground. If you like that idea, you can imagine you're in a lift and you're just going to go down into the ground with the flame. But if that feels uncomfortable, just allow yourself to feel the flame separating from you and moving down into the land. And I invite you to set the intention that this land is going to be healed in some way, that the coronation line is going to be empowered to do the right thing for us, for our population, and for the wider humanity as well. And of course, even to reach out as far as Sandy in Australia, you know, it's about as far as we can get from here, perhaps. Perhaps New Zealand's further, I don't know. But doesn't matter. And if any of you are aware of the Wood Wide Web, which Katie and I teach about in the Harmony in Nature, which is a whole infrastructure under the ground through which trees genuinely communicate with each other, you can imagine that this violet flame is being offered also to that network to really help the living plants and trees of the world, not just Britain, but everywhere. And we can really go out on a limb, and we can invite ETH, the angel of time and space, if anybody's into angel stuff. If you don't like the idea, don't do this bit. And the Egyptian deity Tahuti also does this. Oh, my cat's got something to say now. So these angels are the guardians of time and space. So you are able to use them to bend time and space, to just send this loving, healing energy out in all directions with those angels to anywhere that it's needed, where it can make a difference. And all of us who watch this video and even spend a minute or two on that are going to make a difference. And that's really important to know. I'm just sharing this, changing the screen a little bit if I can to one other page to share, because this just shows the line from a slightly different perspective. Well, let me move down. Yes, so that's, you can see there, you're seeing St George's Hill, and it finishes up at the Maypole in Chigwell, Essex, past the Leytonstone, and this is where it looks like in the whole perspective of England. Yeah. And you can see that Chris only talks about it being in this part, partly because I presume it was that axis on his 30-point star, but maybe it can extrapolate here. We don't know, down to maybe Southampton, Bournemouth, Poole, we're not sure. does it go up past Ipswich here towards Great Yarmouth, for example? Because the other line, the Michael Mary line, finishes up here at a place called Hopton and comes right down to the west of the country through Glastonbury, through Bury St Edmunds, and then Taunton as well, and down into Glastonbury. So it could be maybe parallel almost. I don't know, but that's just giving a slightly bigger perspective on it. Now, I did have a whole load of pictures to show you what happened to me on Coronation Day, because I did go up to London on the day of Coronation, the 6th of May, and I did a whole pilgrimage to lots of sites, and I've got pictures of that. But we've only got 4 minutes left, and Katie and Sandy need to have things to say. So, Katie, I'm going to put you on because I know you will have things to say about the course that we did. Would you like to say anything at this point?
Sorry, were you talking about the course or one of the other?
What feels important? Because we were on the 777. We did the course here, didn't we? The Violet Flame course, and then we ended up at the Cosmon Sanctuary for 7 p.m. working, connecting with the Leith Hill. Did you feel you had anything to say from that day?
Well, I felt it was really beautiful to be in the grounds, and also Anthony, who's the sort of guardian, if you like, or the major trustee there, pointed out very happily, oh, and are you going to light a fire? And Agatha and I were really keen to light a fire, and actually I forgot about that. We took pictures through our purple sunglasses, didn't we? So we could actually, so it looked a bit like a purple flame. So it all felt a really rounded, lovely end to it. It felt like, I mean, the people who were moved to the Cosmon Centre, they were originally in London and were told they needed to move out to this area. It's actually in a village called Walton on the Hill, and that the energies were really powerful, and it was to be a sanctuary, all-encompassing, not specifically denominational. So they celebrate a lot of traditional festivals, but it did feel really good to be there, and just finish off the day and with a fire and wandering around, really connecting with nature, spending time with each other, sort of outside of the teaching. It just really felt like a wonderful day, actually, and being able to make a fire, as Agatha and I kept going to find little bits of dry wood around. It felt like a good end to it all, and sending healing and intentions. We did a bit of drumming, whatever we felt called to share. So yeah, it felt like a very healing day, and we just sent it wherever it's needed, really. But yeah, it felt quite special.
Thank you for that. I've just managed to find it on my phone, the Violet Flame picture that we took through things. If I can try and work out how to share that. Let me just invite Sandy, because I'm sorry that you haven't been very involved today, because it's got carried away with us, the timings. But is there anything, any comments that you'd like to make based on what we've just been talking about?
This book arrived and I've been reading it, and when I was in the Brownies a long time ago, we took a trip to Chigwell Road.
Good gracious.
On May Day. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe the brown owl at the time was into these things, and we learned quite a lot there. And you know, on the day, when I think about it now, I'm just thinking back. But the thing that stood out for me was just the fact that that's when I really felt all the energies coming through from the land.
Wow.
But and learning about, you know, the weaving of the maypole and how it's all about rebirth and renewal, because a lot of that's about the work that I do. So I just found that a bit fascinating. So I just wanted to share that. So supposedly the end of the line, I don't know.
That is so perfect, because I'm at one end of the line and you're at the other.
Yeah, that's right.
As we said, it may well extrapolate further. I don't know if you can you see the picture of the Violet Flame?
Yes.
So that is just our bonfire, but we as a bit of a laugh, I said the first 7 people that signed up to the course could have a free pair of violet glasses. So we've all got some, and we were wearing them, weren't we, on when we were there. It got a bit dark by the end of it, but anyway, we managed to take that photo of our bonfire through the violet glasses. I actually think the background looks more violet than the flame, but but anyway, I think we're probably at about time now, aren't we? I can't believe it. How does it go so quickly? So in fact, we're a minute over. So thank you so much. Wonderful panel. And I know we could all easily talk for a lot longer. And as I said, I didn't even cover the little pilgrimage I did on the day on my own on the day of the coronation, because I couldn't find anyone to go with, and Katie was away and all my friends were away. But my family were a bit lukewarm about coming, and I was rather glad they didn't, because they would have been very bored and poo-pooing everything I did. So it's probably better that none of them were free. But I did have a very powerful day, and the next day I was a bit unwell, but I think that's because I went on my own, and I literally did go to about 7 of the sites on the line, so I think I overdid it. Anyway, for those of you who are still imagining sending the violet flame in, remember to just come back into yourself to say thank you to the violet flame for the experience today, and focus on the fact that you have made a difference. You may not feel like you have, but every one of us has the power to make a difference. If you want to know more about that, email me on jo@harmonyhealing.co.uk, and I will send you a link to my YouTube where I actually talk about the human consciousness, and a theory by Owen Waters about how all of us working on our own spirituality can make a very big difference to the planetary situation. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to Silver Tent TV if you've enjoyed it on YouTube. And this won't be on there for a few hours, maybe a couple of days, I don't know. But we hope to get lots of viewings. Share it with your friends. And please do post underneath what your thoughts are, how you felt when you did the connection with the land. And you know, if anything came up for you, some insights that might be interesting to share with the wonderful panel today. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you.
Jo.
Bye.